est une des capitales de la création. La mode britannique a imprimé sa marque sur cette industrie mondiale. Ici, tout passe très vite du podium des défilés à la rue, où tout le monde invente son propre style. L'inspiration est au coin de chaque rue. Sir Paul Smith est certainement la meilleure synthèse de cette excellence britannique.
The Paul Smith style is classic. The design icons that have been worn, throughout different decades and fashions, they never date.
Well, for me, Paul Smith is stylish, always kept true to the classic styles.
I love Paul Smith. I like to come up here every Saturday with my mum and I like to keep up to date with what's going on in the clothes section.
Paul Smith epitomises modern British taste, and it's a very unique taste and style.
Le travail et les créations des meilleurs stylistes sont évalués chaque année partout dans le monde par des journalistes ou des éditrices de mode qui font et défont les carrières. Une des journalistes les plus influentes de Grande-Bretagne depuis plus de 30 ans est sans conteste Hilary Alexander. Elle veille depuis toutes ces années sur la rubrique mode du Daily Telegraph, l'un des plus prestigieux journaux britanniques.
When you look at most British designers, they have an incredible degree of eccentricity. I mean, you look at people like McQueen, for example, or John Galliano, Hussein Chalayan, all products of the British fashion education system. But I think also behind all of that, there is a fair degree of normality. I mean, Paul, for example, is very modest, and he doesn't really boast about his achievements. I don't think if he has an ego, I think the ego is in his designs, basically. I don't think you see the ego in the man. I think he's always tried to shy away from this concept of fashion, as if it's some incredible, fabulous fantasy, which it can be in some designers. But for Paul, I think he is much more of the real world, and he wants his fashion to be what we wear. Clothes you wear, clothes to wear.
Paul Smith est désormais aussi apprécié pour son prêt-à-porter à destination des femmes. Cependant, sa carrière a débuté avec des collections pour hommes. On retrouve d'ailleurs cet ADN dans ses créations féminines. Couleurs, formes, Paul Smith représente l'essence du style britannique et propose des vêtements pour des femmes de toute origine et de tous âges.
I think when you wear Paul Smith, firstly you feel confident. I think it gives you a sense of confidence because it's made well and it fits well. And it's never too extreme. It doesn't scream and shout, look at me, look at me. But it's got enough difference that people will notice and think, oh, I do like that jacket, or that skirt. Wonderful.
Chaque fois qu'il salue à la fin d'un de ses défilés, les applaudissements lui confirment qu'il a fait le bon choix en devenant créateur de mode.
Because if it hadn't been for the accident, which really put paid to his professional cycling career, maybe he would have gone in completely another direction, and carried on as a professional cyclist. Maybe he would have represented us in the Olympics. But in a sense, that was a kind of luck, which then made him turn or concentrate, more fully on fashion.
Paul Smith réalise très rarement des œuvres collectives. Avec Charming Baker, un artiste londonien aux multiples talents, ils ont créé ensemble une œuvre d'art pour célébrer les Jeux Olympiques.
The Paul Smith collaboration came at a completely different end because he doesn't make art, for one thing, was really good, but I've always really admired his work. I mean, Paul is a beautiful human being, and everybody knows that. And plus, he's just fantastically brilliant and talented, and creative and comes at projects from just a slightly other, from another angle, which I love. The exciting thing, and I think Paul was excited as well, I hope he was that this piece went into the V&A in the foyer, the entrance on Cromwell Road, which was wonderful. And I think that did open up, it definitely opened up lots of the fashion world to art that I was making, and of course all that's massively helpful in anyone's career. I don't know what I did for Paul, but it worked out very well for me.
L'œuvre d'art se trouve dans l'un des musées les plus inventifs du monde. Ce musée, appelé V&A, se trouve sur Cromwell Road. Ce musée était un cadeau de la reine Victoria à son mari le prince Albert, en témoignage de son amour. C'est l'endroit idéal pour présenter cette œuvre d'art unique créée par Charming Baker et Sir Paul Smith.
He's just finished a major art project to celebrate the Olympics, and he loves cycling. In fact, he once wanted to be a professional cyclist until an accident stopped that. But he got a very famous bike, and it was covered in silver, and he balanced it upside down like this. And underneath the little wheel is this tiny little mouse holding up the bike like this. Amazing.
This piece is all about irony and subversive humour. You've got this tiny mouse holding up this enormous metal bicycle, like a little kind of mini Charles Atlas, like a little mini muscle mouse. And it's just a very humorous, very life-affirming piece of work for our main entrance. British humour it's about knocking things down. I mean, it's an ironic tone, it's subversive, and as somebody who works in Britain and lives in London, I think we use humour constantly, I think, just to get by. It's a kind of social, it just makes things work.
Si vous pensez humour britannique, vous pensez Monty Pythons. Leurs films ou programmes de télévision ont fait le tour du monde. Un de leurs héritiers est le comédien Eddie Izzard, encore appelé le Lost Python, ou le Python perdu par John Cleese.
Autrefois, avant que le langage, c'est très facile. Il faut seulement gagner les lettres. K, T, A, B, X, Y, Z. Catapuxix, 89. Excellent, très fort.
The humour that Paul Smith puts into his stuff is kind of off the wall, twisted. It's not on the message. It's not with a smile. It's not with a smile, because I'm wary of the smile. There's dancers who do this thing where they say eyes and teeth, and the dancers, they smile even if their leg's broken off, or Nazis are saying dance, motherfucker. They're still smiling and dancing for Nazis. And I'm saying, no, you actually deliver it quite straight, and the twist comes behind it.
Paul Smith epitomises modern British taste, and it's a very unique taste and style. It's classic, it's modern, it's quirky, and it's ironic, and it's very, very individualist. His fashion comes both from Savile Row and tailoring, but he also takes references from street culture.
Toujours sérieux dans le travail, mais avec l'œil qui frise, Sir Paul Smith a réussi à combiner humour et mode. Cet état d'esprit ne le quitte d'ailleurs jamais. La success story de Paul Smith a débuté dans un endroit assez inattendu, Nottingham. Cette ville des Midlands est avant tout connue comme celle de Robin des Bois. Les habitants de Nottingham sont connus pour leur volontarisme et leur sens du partage. C'est encore aujourd'hui à Nottingham que se trouve le siège social et les usines de Paul Smith. C'est dans cet endroit que se sont forgées ses valeurs, valeurs qu'il a transmises à son entreprise.
Born in 1856, original name Herbert von Heidelbergen, changed to Paul Smith later in life.
Né et élevé à Nottingham, il était clair pour Paul Smith que sa ville jouerait un rôle important dans sa vie. Au vu de son talent pour la mode, on pourrait croire que cette profession était sa passion de jeunesse. Mais tel n'était pas le cas. Un accident avec une voiture allait jouer un rôle majeur dans sa vie.
So my love of cycling started at 12 and unfortunately finished 17 with a bad crash. And so I was in hospital like this. But then after 3 months of being in hospital, I left the hospital and of course I met a few other guys in hospital from motorbike accident or car accident, and we became friends, and one of them said, come on, let's meet up and have a drink and keep in touch. So one of them chose a pub in my hometown, Nottingham, England, and by chance it was the pub where all the young students of the art college went. And after visiting a few times, talking to people, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm a graphic designer. Graphic designer? What's a graphic designer? A young architecture student, photography, artist, and then, of course, fashion.
À l'âge de 18 ans, Paul Smith découvre Londres et les swinging 60s. C'est là qu'il tombe amoureux de Pauline Denyer, diplômée en stylisme du fameux Royal College of Art. Elle deviendra sa muse, son associée et son épouse.
And then on my 21st birthday, I met a girl from London who was one of the teachers. And cut a long story short, you know, we started going out together, we fell in love, and she came to live with me in my hometown. She was from London. She trained at the Royal College of Art as a fashion designer. And she said, you know, you've got so much energy and so much passion that you could have a little business of your own. And so eventually saved up a very small amount of money, opened a small store.
Paul Smith a commencé son activité en 1967 avec seulement 600 livres en poche. En 1970, il ouvre sa première boutique Briar Lane à Nottingham. Il y a toujours une boutique Paul Smith dans cette rue.
When I first started with this little shop, this big, I only opened the shop on Fridays and Saturdays. And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I did lots of other jobs, freelance jobs. And I really learnt the trade, you know, I learnt about how to buy things, what an invoice was. I realised that VAT wasn't vodka and tonic, but actually it was value-added tax. I mean, you know, you do get confused. So one of the things that was great was I learnt about fabric because I started to be a fabric designer. So suddenly you know what a gabardine is, or a barathea, or a high twist worsted, or something. You just get to know them because that's the job. So that's really helped me massively, and that's why actually when you buy a Paul Smith, normally the fabrics are very appropriate for the garment that you're making.
I think Paul has almost like a painter's eye when it comes to colour. He's not afraid of colour. You know, he embraces it, he loves it. And that's why you get, you know, these little cute, quirky things like 5 buttons and 5 different colours on a very conventional tweed jacket, for example, or socks with a different colour stripe, or he would put, say, like a burgundy with yellow, or burgundy with turquoise. He likes the sort of surprise element, and also just, I think, the beauty of seeing what happens when you put different colours together.
He told me at the beginning of his career, he was quite impressed by the French women like Françoise Hardy, Jane Birkin, and so on. It means that effortless style.
With his women's wear, there's always been a certain, shall we say, androgyny about it, because it is quite menswear based. And you have the basic components, you know, that a man would wear: the blazer, the shirt, the trousers, the beautiful long, you know, tailored double-breasted coats. A lot of the things he uses for women's wear are in fact absolute classics of a man's wardrobe. But because of the way he uses perhaps the lining or the fabric, the little colored buttons, it gives it a feminine sense. And then when he adds, you know, a slim skirt instead of a pair of trousers, it almost has sometimes a kind of Greta Garbo sort of look for me, but quite modern, obviously 21st century. But it's that sort of appeal, like a Katharine Hepburn, a Greta Garbo. They, I think, if they were alive today, would probably choose women's wear from Paul Smith.
He mixed the British style, maybe more British for the men, and a certain effortless Parisian style. And personally, I like it. I like the new collections. I loved the lady dandy collections, a little bit rockabilly. But I love when Paul Smith is for the women, men and women. Androgyne. I think it's his best.
It's quite dressed down, this collection. It's very boyish, very back to my roots, really. The very Paul Smith DNA, you know, so it's very much about boyish looks, you know, lots of tailoring, very cool girls, lovely music, lots of Patti Smith. You know, I think what's very Paul Smith is, you know, there is a classic suit, but, you know, with very silly socks. You know, so it's that mix of taking yourself seriously, the love of craftsmanship, tradition, but also with a twist, a sense of humour, the unexpected. You know, you look in a pocket and suddenly it's polka dots or something like that, you know, or the belt is made with flowers, you know, so, or the shirt has embroidery. So there's all these little things, and I think that's what people enjoy about Paul Smith.
Covent Garden est situé au cœur de Londres. C'est autour de ces halles qu'étaient regroupés les grossistes en produits alimentaires jusqu'à la fin des années 60. Ce n'était certainement pas l'endroit le plus indiqué pour ouvrir une boutique de mode, mais sûrement un emplacement abordable ayant un potentiel. À la fin des années 80, Paul Smith développe sa boutique de Floral Street. Il en fera son magasin phare et il a certainement contribué à faire de Covent Garden un des endroits les plus branchés de la capitale britannique.
Paul Smith Women's is classical, but it always has a twist which makes it true to whatever's in season.
I think the Paul Smith brand is iconic, it's very unique, and there's always something new. And most of all, it stands for quality.
I tend to nip into Paul Smith's shop, which is on Floral Street. I used to be a street performer right by Floral Street on the Covent Garden Piazza for 5 years. 4.5 years, 5 years. And his shop was there. It started being there, I think, when I was there, which is 20 years ago. I could have been there all the time. And initially I was trying on stuff of his, and it was kind of long on me. But this is what I heard, all male tailors who do clothes, who start off doing clothes for men, because he obviously does women as well, but they do design for themselves. But the humor is always in there, and he had loads of toys, and I bought a jacket of his, and a button came off, and the buttons are not done by the people, they're done by other people who do the buttons on. But he sent me about like 200 buttons as a thing, and he likes toys and stuff, and I like buying from him because I like his twist.
I don't think it's very normal for a fashion designer to serve his customers. He may pop into the shop to see how things are going on, but to actually serve, I think, it is quite extraordinary. But I think it's fascinating. I think it's an insight into his character, because he really likes to engage with people, and he wants to discover, I guess, from the horse's mouth. What do you like? What don't you like? What works? What doesn't work?
I still work in the store when I can, especially on a Saturday afternoon. Pauline lets me out, for 2 hours and then pulls me back after 2 hours. No, not really. She lets me, she said, oh, you go and play in the shop. So I go to the store for 2 hours, and the reason I do it is because I love it, and also because I'm very clear who's paying my wages, and it's not the press or the magazines or celebrities. It's an ordinary, nice, everyday customer that pays my wages, and I've never forgot that the VIP is the customer. And when I'm in the store, it's really nice because you get criticisms, you get compliments, you get a good gambit of everything.
When I'm talking to Paul, I'm often reminded of sort of slightly a mad scientist, or because of his hair sometimes is all or also like a child in a toy room. And many of his shops reflect this aspect of his personality. They're not just places where he's selling his clothes. There's books, there's things he's collected on his travels, a shell, some old toy, a little steam engine, paintings, prints, pieces of fabric, little things that kind of, I think, appeal to his nature. And he has a childlike pleasure. Oh, look, isn't this fabulous? He'll say, look at this, look at this. And he's got things all around him. And it sort of reminds me very much of what he must have been like as a little boy.
The key thing about me, I hope, is the fact that I have a childlike approach to life. And the key thing about that is not childish, but childlike. And what that means is that you have this freedom of honesty and curiosity. And my room is just full of things that are bad taste and good taste and no value and high value and small things, big things. And they're all inspirational to me, because I say, well, why is that like that? Or why is that like that? And then suddenly you say about a shop, well, why can't I paint that wall pink? Or why can't I do that? Or why can't that be rough and this be smooth, Yes. And that's all to do with things, observation, and not being the slave of the internet and slave of texting and looking at a small screen all the time.
Well, every Paul Smith shop is unique, and you feel as if Paul Smith has had a personal say in how the shop looks and how the shop operates, which makes you feel that he's had a personal say in the clothes you're wearing. So I think they're a fantastic place to shop.
I mean, the shops are great. Anywhere around the world you go into them, they're definitely Paul Smith, but they're they're just full of stuff that you want to look at. I mean, from the things that he makes to the things that they source and sell to just, yeah, the decoration, the furniture, the staff. You know, I think there's something about Paul that filters down through the rest of his whole organisation, because the people, I just think that positive attitude comes from the top. That's what I feel. And that, you know, that shows up in everything he does, in the interiors and everything.
The store is great. It's not overdone. It's not bushy. It's you know, it looks very good. But it's a guy with taste. So what can you expect?
Everywhere in the world there have to be stores. So it's nice that there's finally a store of Paul Smith here in Amsterdam.
First of all, you know, we design all our own stores. We don't give the store design to a company. We do it in-house. So we have 11 young interior or architects, interior designers or architects working for us. And I'm in every meeting. So I follow everything. So this store, I just know completely in my head, you know, even though I haven't been here until today. So, because, you know, I know where this table comes, it's English oak. Dustin Hoffman used to own that chair. It's French floor. So, you know, you just sort of get to know because you're so hands-on, you know.
L'ouverture de ce nouveau magasin rassemble clients et célébrités locales. Le magasin est situé dans l'équivalent hollandais de la rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré. Amsterdam est aussi la ville du vélo et assurément l'endroit où il peut combiner son business d'aujourd'hui avec son amour d'hier.
I think Paul has sort of very strong values, you know, about not owing money, you know, not borrowing money from people. I mean, these are sort of family values that you might be taught as a child. And I think these things have stayed with him. And his sense of independence, so nobody is telling him what to do. I mean, he is the head of a fashion empire worth hundreds of millions of pounds. And he's known all over the world. And, you know, he's been knighted, you know, he's won awards for his design, for, you know, his charity projects. And yet, he remains quite elusive. And maybe that's because he is basically a normal guy.
The great thing about my existence in terms of work is the fact that I own the business. And we have no borrowings from the bank. We've never had any borrowings. I'm the boss. And what's adorable about that is that you can be very spontaneous, you can be very honest. You don't have to talk to greedy shareholders who are looking for more and more money all the time and more profit and expansion that is not natural expansion. This is a new store here in Amsterdam, but, you know, we've been a long time looking for a store that we felt comfortable with in Amsterdam, and we open things on our terms, and that's what's lovely about being independent.
Avec une entreprise faisant environ 200 millions de livres au niveau mondial, Paul Smith doit garder l'œil sur les comptes. Et la prochaine collection est à la fois un défi créatif et commercial.
I'm sorry to talk about business, but, you know, the times are difficult. So I think most of that collection you could add to an existing wardrobe. And so you could just take the jacket and put with a frock that you've already got, or pants with a sweater you've got. So I think from a lot of the people out there are shops. You know, half of you are press and half of you are shops. So in 12 minutes, I've got to say, I've got new ideas, and also I can pay the rent. Yeah, so you know, it's getting the balance of the two, and I think I did that.
I think his company can't help expanding. It's almost like he can't turn back the tide because he is so successful and more people want his clothes, so he kind of has to do more shops or more expansion. But I think also he does put a lot of the money kind of back into his business, into his shops, and he does spend a lot of time, you know, making sure that the shops look great and making sure that the staff are happy, and obviously to his charity projects, like Maggie's Hospital that you mentioned. So, you know, in a sense, the growth and expansion also enables him to do something like Maggie's Hospital. Maybe also it's something to do with age, getting older. Because Paul's 67, same age as me actually. And I think sometimes, you know, you think there's a sense of time running out and the desire to do all these things maybe you thought of doing. Have you done everything you really wanted to do? So obviously this is one of the things he would really like to do.
À 200 km au nord de Londres, Nottingham, avec sa population de 300 000 personnes et 2 universités rassemblant 60 000 étudiants, est la 8e plus grande zone urbaine du Royaume-Uni.
Well, why I think he's so keen on the city is he started here. He started from nothing. He's built up a multi-million-pound business, but his heart is still here. He will still go to his local town's civic society with 20 other people there, and he's still terribly interested in that. He will still help young people in the area. He still gives lectures and courses at the university in design to help them. He has helped build a hospital with wonderful interior design, internal design. It's something we're extremely proud of, but in particular, we're proud of its function. I cannot think of a better building that Paul Smith has applied himself to. There is no better cause. So it's not just a piece of iconic architecture, it is something which is highly functional and which will do a great deal of good for the city and for the people of the city.
Paul Smith being a huge part of the community and a real sense of pride for the community, was approached and asked if he wanted to help with making this centre, and kindly obliged, and not only helped but went above and beyond what was requested and what was asked, and I think has given us more than we could have ever wished for. First thing that people say when they walk in is they immediately feel better just after having walked in. They feel at home, they feel special, especially when they hear that Paul's been part of the project. I think they really just think the world of that. This individual who has gone out and been successful and is creative and talented has taken the time to invest back in the community and actually invest back in them. Really makes them feel special, and that's exactly what they need. It's also warm and inviting, and it's also really practical, which is wonderful as well. We have all kinds of activities that go on here, groups and workshops, and the furnishings lend themselves to that. People can come in and just have a cup of tea, enter into the kitchen, and they feel immediately at home. And you know, what we say is that when somebody comes in, we offer them a cup of tea, and after that, they're expected to help themselves. There's a wonderful banquette around the kitchen table as well, that just allows for that family feel. When you come in to the centre, you can also, if you turn to the right, enter into our library, and that has a wealth of information. What's so special about what's been done in the library is, well, so oftentimes they'll make reference to it, and people won't even realise that it's a library because they'll have walked in and they've just thought it's just a wonderful room to be in. When you walk on through, you'll go into the tweed room, the Maggie's tweed settee. I think people perhaps use this as a slightly more contemplative area. It's a bit more serious, a bit more sophisticated maybe, and they'll often bring through one of the books, just sit quietly and read. If you go down the stairs, you walk into a bright, uplifting, and a much more, I would say, playful room. You see cats and dogs, and we also have some stuffed toys, and this is a place where oftentimes children will feel at home if their parents are coming in and just need to have a quiet word and they can feel more comfortable. In the other room, which is where I do a lot of my one-to-one work, what's wonderful is that the chairs, and these are the subtleties that we pick up on, that the chairs are level. So you're level with the individual that you're speaking with. And from a psychologist standpoint, that's so important, that people feel that you're working with them and not above them, and more as a friend, really. And then when you walk into what is the lie-down room, which everyone says that they're going to be signing up for, again, it's a quiet place to be, but also has little uplifting touches so that someone that goes in there can have that cocoon and feel that safety, but also feel quite uplifted.
His heart's here, and he's a very, very humble person who has never forgotten his roots, and we are very proud of him, but he's also a massive international icon which puts the city on the map. And we do hope that Paul Smith will be able to expand his current factory. But what we are ever so proud of is the fact that he maintained his factory here. He could have gone abroad, he could have gone for sort of cheaper prices, but he's stuck loyal to Nottingham.
I mean, what's happened with the fashion industry is massive in the last 20 years, because so much is communication is so strong now. So a lot of the big designer brands stream their fashion shows live, so a lot of the low-cost people can actually see the fashion show and imitate or have clothes of a similar nature very quickly, often quicker than the actual designer brands themselves, because if it's a navy blue suit, you know, it's quite easy to imitate. So that's very different to what it used to be. There's a lot of big brands now, very, very big brands, so they are very powerful. So that's very difficult for a young designer starting out, because the factories and the fabric suppliers are just really interested in 20,000 meters to this brand or 50,000 meters, whereas, you know, when you're starting out, you want 50 meters or 100 meters. So it's still possible as a young designer, absolutely, to, you know, find this way through the reeds to the sea, I suppose you could say. But I mean, it's just changed a lot. It's a lot more commercial, a lot more about marketing, a lot more about hype, a lot more about the power of money and opening 20 shops every year and paying large amounts for rent. So it's very different to what it used to be.
La mode en Grande-Bretagne n'est pas seulement une affaire de créateurs. C'est surtout un énorme business qui contribue à hauteur de 21 milliards de livres à l'économie britannique. Cette activité retentit positivement sur d'autres activités comme les services financiers et le tourisme. L'industrie de la mode au Royaume-Uni est le plus grand employeur de toutes les industries créatives, en employant directement 816 000 personnes. Au cours des 10 dernières années en Grande-Bretagne, on a pu voir à quel point la mode est devenue une partie importante de la vie des gens. L'industrie britannique de la mode a le talent, la créativité et les compétences nécessaires pour rivaliser avec le monde entier.
I think the fact that Britain has a high street is something else that's quite unique, because there is no other capital city that, or even country, that has what we call the high street. And basically, I don't know what else you would compare it with. There is nothing to compare it with. It's a whole series of chains like George, like Topshop, Miss Selfridge, River Island, Next. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And they're not designer, and their prices generally, it's going to be as little as, say, £6 or £7 for a t-shirt. Top price, maybe £200 for a wool cashmere overcoat. Strongly influenced by the catwalk, but produced in bulk, so the prices are accessible. And British fashion really probably couldn't exist without the high street.
British fashion comes from the street, and we have the best fashion schools in the world. And they're places where you can take risk and experiment. And I think our labels are really exciting as well. And what was interesting in the last few years were the high street stores, the Topshops and the H&Ms, bringing in famous designers to make fashion available to everyone. But I mean, you know, you walk around the streets of London and you see people styled amazingly, and you don't see that. You may see it in the streets of Johannesburg, you might see it on the streets of Nairobi, but you won't see it in Paris or New York. You'll see it in London, because London's multicultural, and fashion is about showing off your individuality, not about being part of a pack, and that's very, very London.
How I have done it right from the beginning, as I said to you earlier, my little shop was just open on Fridays and Saturdays, and the rest of the week was earning money and learning my trade. So if you describe it like this, that's the purity of Friday and Saturday. So my little 2 lines are upstairs here, what we call the main lines. They're the pure things, and then here you have jeans lines and more commercial lines, and they have pay the rent. So it's very much about the balance between the purity of the future and special things and learning about paying the rent. And that's the top tip for anybody who wants to progress. Don't just do the pure things and don't just do the commercial things. Get a cocktail and... Hello, very nice to meet you. It's lovely. So I've heard you've been doing a project which is going to be a surprise, I believe.
Here's the portrait. I've done the work I've done for you.
Oh, wow.
That's it. You see it.
Oh, yeah, there's my dad's Rolleiflex. Yeah. There's Pauline. There's me as a young man.
Lots of bikes.
Yeah. Beautiful.
The flower you took.
Yeah. Oh, wow, yeah.
In the background.
That's the Australian one. Yeah. 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 Wow. Fantastic. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Let's go in front of here. Yeah. Yeah.